Hello, hello. Getting ourselves rocking and rolling here. Welcome to our free seminar, Logo Design in Adobe Illustrator. Hope you are all doing well. We already got a question. Is there going to be a recording of this posted? Heck yes. We're going to have this live on our YouTube as well as our website, nobledesktop.com. So it will be available for viewing purposes after the class is done. And so you'll have all that fun stuff available for you there. So before we get into the nitty gritty of things with logo design, I did just want to briefly introduce myself to you all. Hello, hi, my name is Justine Sanborn, and I am an instructor at Noble Desktop. So I'm going to be walking you through the process of logo design. So some of it is going to be in Adobe Illustrator, and I do have some other things and components that are going to be a part of this process as well that I'm going to be introducing you to. So choosing fonts, color palettes, getting together mood boards, and all that fun stuff. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and get started here very shortly. Just a few more introductions so you all know what we're getting into today. Again, we are talking about logo design in Adobe Illustrator. We are going to just start off with some things that you want to do to get yourself set up, including inspiration. So kind of hard to do kind of hard to design a logo without any inspiration. So I'm going to give you some suggestions on where you can find that inspo, and I'll send those links in the chat as they come up. From there, we're going to talk about mood boards, color palettes, fonts, all that fun stuff. And then that process of ideating. So I did already do some of the ideating for what we're going to be working on in class. So if you look at the description of this live stream, or if you're looking at this later, you'll see it under the video itself. There is a link to both the logo tech kit as well as the logo sketches. So you can work right along with me if you want to do so. You're absolutely welcome to do so. And again, those links are down into the description there. Hello, hi, welcome. So yeah, let's go ahead and get rocking and rolling here. Again, I am Justine Sanborn from Noble Desktop. We do also offer some really amazing classes with Noble Desktop too in regards to design. So if you're interested in more, definitely check those out as well. So here's the deal. When you're getting yourself started, you really just want to understand the project objectives, get some research, find some inspiration. Again, it's really hard to get the ball rolling on a logo design if you don't have any of those pieces before you start. So if you're looking to build your portfolio, you might not have any clients to work with yet. So ultimately focus on creating some sort of passion project that you think can showcase your unique design skills. So I'm going to show you something that I think is really great, especially for people that maybe you're like, well, I don't know if I really want to go with like a passion project, or I'm not like thinking of anything unique, and you just need some sort of spark to kind of get the ball rolling. So there's this website called Sharpen Design. I'm going to go ahead and add the link to the chat for y'all so that you can see it. Maybe. Let's see. Hello? Maybe not. Okay, well, it is Sharpen. Good thing it's an easy URL because it doesn't look like I'm able to type in right now. But it is sharpen.design. And sharpen.design just ultimately populates just all these different like random ideas that you could get the ball rolling in terms of design, marketing, as well as product and UX design too. So it's a really great platform just to kind of, again, get yourself inspired and figure out exactly what you want to do with whatever you're designing. So I went through Sharpen Design and found this really cool prompt. It said, create a logo design kit for a cafe in Seattle. So that is what I started with in terms of ideating, creating, researching, all of that fun stuff. So again, create a logo design kit for a cafe in Seattle. Now, a logo design kit is going to incorporate the logo that we're going to create for it, which is both the word mark as well as the iconography, which I'll talk about further once we get there. It's also going to include a color palette and some supporting imagery for the logo as well. So again, we have a template for you that you can use or work alongside this stream if you'd like to. So the very first thing that I did was I looked up different places in Seattle, different coffee shops in Seattle, just to get kind of the vibe of the city and of the place that this coffee shop would ultimately be. And so I was seeing a lot of different like blues and like warm tones and a lot of plants and stuff around all of these different coffee shops. So really cool, a lot of industrial vibes coming here. And these are all things that I'm using to ultimately inspire me on what I might sketch, what I might ideate for the logo development. So ultimately, when you're getting yourself started with logo design, again, having some sense of inspiration, searching a wide variety of things related to the location, related to the subject matter, all of that fun stuff, and just making sure that you know what's also out there so that you can also differentiate the branding that you're choosing to create versus, well, what already exists out there. Okay. From there, I also like to look at other types of branding as well. My favorite go-to place to get inspired in terms of just design content in general, honestly, just really creative content in general, is I love to go to behance.net. Behance.net is ultimately a social platform for portfolio creative content. So it acts both like a social platform as well as a portfolio platform. And it's run by Adobe, and it's a really great place to just see what other folks are doing and designing, and just to get a sense of the environment, again, of which you are putting this passion project, if you will, into. Okay. So when I was looking up things on Behance, I was seeing, again, a lot of blues, but this time a bit more lighter blues were prominent, a lot of reds. So I was seeing a lot of different reds. Of course, a lot of darker tones, tones that are within like the color of a coffee bean in and of itself, were really prominent throughout all of this different types of branding. I really loved that it was honestly a really wide range of different type of content that I was seeing, different logos that I was seeing. So there was, a lot of things to kind of like take in and feel out in terms of the whole aesthetic that we're going through, right? So again, that's behance.net. The one before, I was just doing just a regular schmegular search for different things around Seattle and coffee shops, etc. Alrighty. One of my favorite places who also go for inspiration is the queen of social media, Pinterest themselves. All right. That we love a good Pinterest moment. And honestly, Pinterest is so fantastic in terms of, again, getting inspiration in the space of graphic design. So when you're looking for logos, when you're looking for styles, etc., searching what you're looking for in term, I think I might have searched something on the lines of coffee shop design, coffee shop logo, and I was just seeing what was ultimately populating within Pinterest. What's quite nice about Pinterest is, of course, you can also create boards that you can look at later. So I was able to create a board that is all of these fun stuffs. Words are hard again, excuse me, but to allow me to have some type of inspiration for what I was about to create. Again, inspiration and also differentiation. So I want something that works well in the mix here, but is also uniquely its own thing. And that's a really big thing when it comes to logo design that you want to consider, right? So you want to see what other folks have been making, what sort of design trends are out there. Actually, this caricature design is very much on trend right now. Of course, that typeface that they're using as well is really popular at this time. So seeing that and getting inspiration of that and being like, okay, how could we maybe either elevate that or take a different direction that, again, is going to be uniquely this Seattle-based coffee shop. All right. With that being said, once you get some inspiration, honestly, I did leave out one more thing. So let me just go back here before I move on. One other thing that I failed to mention during the whole search of Seattle was just getting, again, a taste of what Seattle is about. And not for nothing, but one of the most common things that people think about when they think about Seattle is rain. And so that's also something that I was looking up a lot, was different Seattle-based logos. And there was a lot of rain and water, and those things were very present in a lot of the branding that I was seeing in local Seattle-based coffee shops as well. So that's also something that you want to just kind of, again, encompass when you're getting your thoughts together. So once you get inspired, you take a look at what's out there, you have an understanding of the landscape and the environment of which you're creating this logo. The next step is, well, at least for me, and you could, not for nothing, but you could ultimately do all of these different steps in different orders if you want to. I just find that doing the research of what's out there in the landscape is more advantageous for me than diving right into, let's say, color or typeface. Okay. So after all of that research, I do like to dive into the color next, take a look at different color palettes. I think I searched on Adobe Color here. I searched coffee shop just to see a variety of different color palettes that were coming up for coffee shops. So that's why you're seeing these different coffee photos. And what's really great about Adobe Color, which is color.adobe.com. I don't have these links in the description yet, but what I'm going to do for y'all, by the way, is I'm going to go ahead and just add these links that I've been mentioning because I am not able to add them to the chat for whatever reason. Tier, sorry. But I'll add them to the description later. So that way you have access to all these. So anyway, this one is color.adobe.com. And yeah, a stellar resource for color palettes. Not only is it a great resource for color palettes in terms of the Explore tab, but you're also able to create your own color palettes with different contrasting colors and things like that. Different color harmonies, I should say, which is really, really quite nice and a very sort of intuitive way of finding a color palette. I remember very vividly not having this tool or not having access to this tool years and years ago, and how incredibly challenging, frankly, it is to create a successful color palette. My tip for colored palettes is to consider a color palette that incorporates a mixture of dark colors, a mixture of mid-tone colors, like mid-range colors, and a mixture of lighter colors, okay? Usually what I like to go with is a color palette that has one mid-tone, two lighter colors, and two darker colors. That's, again, my personal preference, and it's not a requirement for everything you're doing. I'm just letting you know what seems to work fairly consistent for my logo design process, okay? So again, two dark, two light, one mid. That's my favorite go-to. So with that being said, what I ended up choosing were these colorways. So I pulled some imagery, which is also already in the logo tech kit template that you'll see linked below. I pulled these images and ultimately use them as inspiration for the color palette that you're seeing here. So again, we have these lighter colors here of this seafoam green and almost like a gold. And then we have this lighter maroon, which I think is really quite nice. I was definitely seeing a lot of red in a lot of the coffee logo designs that I was seeing out there, but I wasn't seeing sort of this more muted, lighter color. So I thought that that was an interesting approach. And then the two darker colors of the navy, which seems to be very much a color that's predominant within the space of Seattle. Again, it kind of has this sort of representation of rain in a way, very similar to the seafoam green moment. And then we have the darker brown here, which is more representative of this maybe organic, natural, comforting, welcoming environment. Also baked goods. So the brown is really representative of baked goods, roasted coffee beans. So there's a lot of things kind of aligned with that. Ultimately, why I'm telling you this story is so that you know when you're choosing a color palette, having a reason and purpose behind each of the colors and what kind of story they're telling can really elevate what you're choosing to create and building quite literally really a whole story together with your logo design process. Okay. Then we get into the typefaces, and a frequent question that I get is like, why do you call them typefaces? Why do you not call them fonts? Listen, you know, typefaces is both of which words are referring to type and letters. I just frankly prefer typefaces. Font, using the word font is totally fine. Just I guess, like to be a little bougie with my words and use typefaces instead, I guess. But in terms of typefaces, yet again, I'm going to an Adobe resource. So this Adobe resource is fonts.adobe.com, and it's a really fantastic place to not only find typefaces, but also activate them so that they're automatically available in your Adobe Creative Suite, which makes it so incredibly, doable to work with. Used to have a different meaning in typesetting. Yeah, no, oh my gosh, Jaren, don't get me started with the whole with the whole letterpress process here. I'm going to continue talking about that forever. Hey, Jaren, since you're in chat, because I am unable actually to add comments right now for whatever reason, do you mind adding a link to a few places for me? One of them being color.adobe.com. The other one being this right here, which is fonts.adobe.com. The other one being behance.net. And then the last one is sharpen.design. If you need me to repeat those later on, just let me know. I'm going to be, again, adding them to the description, and my mistake for not having them into the description already for y'all. But anyway, Jaren's here to help out. Shout out to Jaren, my work dad. We love to see it. So, anywho, took a look on Adobe Fonts, and what Adobe Fonts has is it not only has different ways of ultimately like categorizing different fonts. Let's say if you're looking for a serif or a sans serif, what I like to refer to as the fonts with the feeties or without the feeties, you can do that. Cool. But there's also different like style categories. So they have futuristic, they have elegant, they have quirky, as like just like different like actual style categories. And not for nothing, but I absolutely love that categorization that Adobe Fonts has, and it's really uniquely Adobe Fonts. I do also go to other platforms like Google Fonts, for example, which has the generalized filter features, but it doesn't have, again, those unique categories that you're going to see on the Adobe Fonts website. Another thing that's unique about Adobe is, again, when you click on this little slider button, it's going to automatically activate those fonts and have it available for you immediately on all of your Adobe Creative Suite applications, rather than downloading the font, then having to install it, which, depending on what you're doing and depending on what kind of client you're working on, you might have to go either way. But I do like that feature in terms of using it for ideating. Another thing that I didn't mention with the color palette, there is a similar feature with Adobe Color as well, where you can automatically add your color palette to your CC library, and you'll have that readily available, again, within any of your different Adobe Creative Suite applications. So we love to see efficiency, and yeah, Adobe definitely provides it. So that's that. And now here is where you're going to spend probably quite a lot of time. Okay. A lot of folks are not a big fan of sketching. I've taught quite a few graphic design classes, and it's always something that's just like, we have to sketch it. And, understandably so. Like, listen, I get it. It's sometimes exhaustive. Maybe you are not a big fan of your sketching capabilities. Maybe you would rather see something digitally. There might be a lot of reasons why, the sketching thing is maybe the more challenging component. But I think something to just consider and be aware of is that some folks are going to use their sketching as nearly literal interpretations of what they choose to go with in terms of their logo design. What you're seeing here for my sketches is that I use the sketching process to ideate, okay? And what this is referred to as in terms of ideating is it's called form storming, or at least that's what I primarily focus on. You'll see I don't use a lot of text. There's text here and there, so I can maybe play with like the typefaces a little bit, but I primarily focus on form storming. So taking a form and thinking about that form in a ton of different ways. So I used to challenge my students to do form storming challenges of drawing out, what was it, like something like 25 different versions of a leaf, or 100 versions of an egg or something like that. And boy, oh boy, you're going to get to a point in time in the form storming process where you legit feel like you ran out of ideas. Like, this is all you get, and where you're seeing that for me was the raindrop, the raindrop, the raindrop, the raindrop over and over again. And I'm like, I don't know if I can do a raindrop with coffee like any other way. Oh, and the coffee cup, right? I was like, I don't know if I can do this any other way. And so you get to a point where you probably feel a little bit flustered. And that's where the really interesting things tend to happen, not for nothing. So working through that is definitely advantageous. And that's ultimately what happened to me. So I was like, all right, I'm doing too many raindrops here. I'm doing too many like coffee cups. And all the logos that I'm seeing for these different coffee shops are, one or the other. So Seattle branding, you're going to see a bunch of raindrops, and then coffee shop branding, you're going to see all these different coffee cups. So I was like, what's going to make it different? And so I looked back at the imagery that I pulled here. So I looked back at the imagery that I pulled, and I was like, is there something within these two photos that I could pull as inspiration? And I noticed the windowsill here and this like really unique architecture. I mean, it's not that unique, but whatever. The shape of the window was really interesting to me. You added the links. All right, bet. Okay, so Jaren has successfully added all those links to the live description for us. So all of these things that I've been talking about are now available in the description. So thank you, Jaren. I appreciate that. That's awesome. But yeah, circling back to inspiration, I was like, oh, this is interesting. Let's play with this, this shape. And considering, again, this rainy Seattle vibe, I wanted to make that like a component of the branding for sure, which is where the raindrop came in and was just like there constantly. But then also making it conceptually similar to coffee as well. So that's where this came into play. Okay, this sketch right here, the windowsill, well, this one as well, but honestly, I don't know. It's something about this particular one that doesn't sit well with me, which I'll touch upon slightly. But anyway, this is ultimately the one that we're going to be going with and designing in Adobe Illustrator today, okay? Yeah, another thing, like when you're ideating, again, looking for things that look similar, looking for things that or looking at your concepts in different perspectives, seeing what, maybe if you like look at it upside down, it looks like a weird thing, or if you look at it this way, it looks like a weird thing. Just being mindful of that is really important. Honestly, also having other people look at what you're creating and ideating, if you can, if you're doing a passion project or what have you, definitely do that as well. Get second opinions on stuff, and that can be really helpful. So ultimately, what I'm deciding to go forward with is this more geometric approach. So yeah, that is where we're going to go ahead and get ourselves started in Illustrator. I have a blank document, not even saved. I do have the typefaces that I chose already here because otherwise I'm going to forget their names, to be honest. So I did kind of cheat a little. But if you want to catch up with me for what I did here, what I did is I went to File, New in Adobe Illustrator. Just chose the regular schmegular print. Yes, that's one of my favorite things to say. So anyway, on the right-hand side here, we have the width and height, and that's honestly fine. Some people like to do landscape. I'm not really concerned about it. I'm going to be putting it elsewhere, so whatever. But also something that I want to mention is your units of measurement. This is going to reflect in the entire program. So when you create a shape and you're like, I want this shape this size or what have you, it's going to be measured in whatever unit of measurement you choose here. So frankly, I choose to go with the one that I'm most familiar with, which for me is inches. And for you could be whatever works for you. Okay. I just like to choose what's the most familiar for me. Whenever you're sending it to someone else, then you can change things around. In terms of color, this one's currently set to CMYK. I'm actually going to show you how you can switch this to RGB later after you've created your file, because yeah, I actually don't want CMYK. To make the long story short, CMYK has a smaller range of color by around 7 million colors. So I just want a wider range of colors. But it is important to keep that 7 million. Pika's older than I am, Jaren, stop. Yeah. Ooh, we love a good Pika moment, you know. We're not printmaking anymore. We don't need to measure things in pikas. Although things are still measured in points. And none of you asked for it, but I'm going to tell you that for every 12 points, you get a pika. And is that a fun fact that you can share with everyone and they just won't understand what that means? Yeah, mostly, but I'm sharing it with you anyway, so now you know. But anyway, back to the color, CMYK, okay? It's 10 million colors that's in this color range, right? RGB has around 16.7 million. It's like a weird number. So you do, like I said, have like around 7 million colors that you won't be able to reflect when something's printed. And not for nothing, but it's definitely something to be mindful of. And I see it happen to a lot of brands, a lot of designers, where they choose a color that's out of that CMYK range, and it can really throw off that process. So just know that. But when I'm ideating, I start with black. So not for nothing, I'm not like super concerned about it right now because I'm just going to be creating with black. But anyway, yeah, if you were creating a new file, you just hit create there. Cool. I'm going to hit close because I already have it here. So right now I'm still rocking and rolling in CMYK just to prove it. I can open up my swatches here and take a look at actually my list view. So let me do a list, large list view, so we can see what's going on. You can see the little colorway, the little triangles here represent CMYK. So yeah, so if that happens, you want to switch it over to RGB, that's fine. Go to, pretty sure edit. Yeah. And then edit colors. No, just kidding. I lied. Color settings. Also lied. Something dropped down here that I'm missing. Whoopsie dizzle. Am I blind? My setting, no. Also not here too. Wasn't it under colors? I swear it was under colors, but maybe I'm crazy. Color settings. Working spaces, yeah. Maybe if I switch this. Now I feel like I did something completely wrong, which, you know, there's always that moment that happens to me when I'm telling somebody about something. And honestly, Jaren's in the chat, so maybe he can remember where it's located, because I'm pretty sure I'm just not remembering where it's located, because you should be able to just very easily switch your file over. Maybe it's under file, but I'm not going to waste more time on it. Point being is it's okay to make mistakes. We're human beings, you know, and we're honestly built to make mistakes, but these programs are not, they don't think like human beings. So if you make a mistake or if something doesn't go according to plan, think about what you did and like rethink about the same thing. And sometimes doing the same thing twice, right? So I went to the same menu option twice just to make sure I was not missing something. And yeah, sometimes you're able to work it out. And sometimes you might need to go to the internet to find a solution, or ask a peer like I have in this case. But anyway, you know, these types of things happen. So we're going to keep it as is for now. It's fine. The other file is set up the way that it needs to be anyway. Now, I do want to also mention that I created a new file for a reason, because you can open images in Illustrator, but you won't have all of your default swatches in here, which I personally rely greatly on, and I just prefer to have them in my swatches. So it's really just a preference thing. Just know that if you open an image directly in Illustrator, all you're going to have is none and registration. You're not going to have anything else. You're not going to have white. You're not going to have black, etc. So that is what it is. Okay, cool. Next on our list is I'm going to go ahead and import my sketches as a reference. So I'm going to go to File, Place, which is Control or Command Shift P if you are a shortcut junkie. Okay, you're looking at, oops, Okay, hold on. You were looking at some of my grad school projects there. Fun, fun. But anyway, let me go ahead and grab those files and place that. Cool. So place it. You can either click once and it's going to scale true to size, which sometimes is ginormous. So what I prefer is I just prefer to just click and drag. That's big enough. That's fine. Okay. Side note about this is you could also have placed this as a template if you wanted to. I like to move things around freely, so templates make that a little bit more annoying. You could also crop this if you really wanted to, but I'm, again, just using this as a reference point right now. Okay. In terms of my layers, I'm just going to go ahead and keep this layer devoted to my, to both my images, or, well, image and guides. So I'm just going to type in image/guides. Okay. This is particularly important when you start grouping things, okay? Your guides in Illustrator, if you have them selected while you have other shapes selected, and let's say you try to fill it with color or something of that sort, it's going to say you can't do this. And it's because you have a guide selected. So I like to put my guides in a separate layer so that I don't run the risk of accidentally selecting it later on, okay? Cool. Step 2, I like to zoom in so I can see what I'm doing. So Control Command plus, okay? You can hold down the space bar on your keyboard and drag wherever. I'm going to zoom in just a titch more, to be honest. Yeah, I'm vibing with that. And then again, hold down the space bar, drag that around, and you can see what you're doing better, okay? I also need to turn on my rulers to incorporate some guides because I want to have some straight lines here for sure. So I'm going to go ahead and hold down Control Command R. Control Command R is going to turn on your rulers here, okay? And I'll be able to pull guides from these little rulers on the left and right hand, or sorry, on the top and the left hand side, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just start from the left here, and then I'm just going to drag approximately where I want it. Right now, I could do a specific width and height, but honestly, I think I'll be fine without that. Then I'm going to go to the top and I'm going to create some guides here like so. Cool. All right. So that way I have the guides, and then maybe I don't necessarily have to have like that image on all the time. Speaking of image, another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make the image a titch lighter. Okay. If you open up your layers in your layers panel, you can actually select items from these little targets on the far right hand side. So I'm just going to click on the target for the image. Okay. And then to adjust the opacity transparency, you're going to go to your transparency panel. Some of you at this point in time might be like, where are these darn panels that you are talking about in Illustrator? Great question. They are always and forever under window. Okay. Window equals workspace, and I promise you literally all of your panels in this program, and honestly, if you're really in any of these Adobe programs, and even some non-Adobe programs, panels are going to live under window for you, okay? So if you're trying to look for a panel, they're all here. Also, I highly recommend the one that I started with in terms of workspace is the Essentials Classic option, okay? So anyway, that is something that I recommend that you remember. I think it's easy to remember window equals workspace, but I digress. So we're going to a panel, and that panel is transparency. That is where we're going to make our image here a little bit more transparent for us to work with. I'm going to go ahead and change the opacity. It is currently 100% opaque. I'm going to bring it down. I'm going to dial it to about 50%. Can't quite get to 50. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. My num lock is not on. That makes so much more sense to me now that I was struggling earlier. Num lock is on now. And I can type in 50. Cool. Alrighty, so we got that done. And on to the actual design process. So what I'm going to be focused on first is the iconography, okay? The iconography is this icon that you're seeing here. I'm not going to worry about the text yet. It's just my vibe. That's the way that I prefer to go. Some people like to start with text and then go into iconography. whatever works for you, whatever style. Everybody's style is honestly different. So if I'm saying something, you're like, oh, I do it this way, that's fine. That's totally cool. But I'm going to start with this. Now, before I start with this, I do also just want to keep myself a little organized in this file. So I'm going to go ahead and create myself a new layer. And this new layer is just going to be called logo. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and create that. And then I'm also just for now, well, probably forever for this class, I'm going to lock the image and guides layer. So that way I don't accidentally move my guides. I don't accidentally select my guides. I don't accidentally move my image or select my image. Cool. Speaking of selection, before moving forward, make sure you have the right layer selected before you go in and start trying to incorporate stuff. If I had image and guides selected, I wouldn't be able to do anything. Nothing would happen. Okay. So make sure logo is selected and then you'll be good to go. All right. Next on our list is, all right, well, how are we going to create this? Because not for nothing, you could go about it with a lot of different tools. You could use your pen tool. You could use your line segment tool. You could use your shape tool. And honestly, for me, it just comes down to what's going to be the easiest one to work with here. And that is going to be the rectangle tool, at least for the basis of this design. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the rectangle tool. Maybe you'll remember the shortcut because it's one letter and it's the letter M on your keyboard, okay? And and so how I have people remember the rectangles, they go, rectangle, because letter M. Maybe that will help you. Maybe it won't. At least it makes it kind of silly, right? So you press that letter on your keyboard and it's going to select your rectangle tool in the application. Neato. Then what I want to do is I want to move up to my control panel. If you're like, well, wait, it's called options panel in Photoshop. You are 1000% right. It's called control panel in Illustrator because it isn't options for these tools. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's more wide or vast than that. So that's the name difference there. So here in Illustrator, it's called the control panel. In your control panel, you have your fill and your stroke. So fill is going to be the inside color and your stroke is going to be the outline color, which not for nothing, but your outline color or the word outline is used in a different place in this program, which we will use for the logo as well. So refer to it as stroke ideally. But anyway, we don't want to have a fill color, at least for these rectangles. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a stroke. So I'm going to click on the arrow next to stroke and it's going to pull up a little mini swatch list for me here. And I'm just going to go ahead and choose black. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and choose black and I'm going to align now. Oh, well, actually, before I create it, I could adjust the stroke size if I wanted to. I'm not sure what I want, honestly, for a stroke size yet, so I'm not going to change this. You do also have custom brushes if you want to get wild and crazy and you want like actual literal like this type of texture. But to be honest, I'm going with something that's going to be a lot more structured than my sketch style. My sketch style is really messy. And yeah, that's why I honestly just use it as a very rudimentary reference. So anywho, I'm not going to change anything here as the moral of the story. I'm going to go and align this tool, this little crosshatch, to the intersection of my guides that I created. And I'm just going to go ahead and drag with my mouse. And it's going to snap to my guides. We love to see it. I'm going to release my mouse click. Lovely. Okay. From here, I could create additional squares or rectangles or what have you. But it's kind of going to be a little annoying to get it quite aligned if I start from this corner, which I would like to, but I'm not going to. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the middle and where that other guide is. Okay. When I go to the middle, gosh, it's kind of hard for y'all to see. So if you squint, you'll see it. But you should see a smart guide, which is in pink, but also like the center is red. But you see the smart guide in pink. Your smart guides are going to show up in pink. Okay. And then your guides that you created are going to be that blue color, right? So what I'm seeing is I see a pink smart guide with a little line and in a circle, that red circle that's literally in the middle of the rectangle that I just created. All right. It also says intersect, meaning that it's directly in the middle, but it's also aligned to the guide that I created. What I'm getting to is that means that this shape that I'm about to create is going to start from directly the center of this, which is great. That's exactly what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and start dragging with that as well. And then that also snaps to that same line. Cool. I'm going to release my mouse click and move away. Now, I could go in and create another shape the same way, but I want to ensure that everything's equal. So instead, I'm actually going to create a duplicate of this shape. And I'm going to use one of my favorite shortcuts to use in Adobe programs. So I'm going to switch to my selection tool, which I could have pressed the letter V, V as in Victor, to switch to my selection tool, but I didn't. Anyway, your selection tool selected. We're going to create a duplicate. This is a shortcut, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to hold down Alt or Option on your keyboard. And when you look at your cursor because it shows you when you're using the right shortcut. Because I never remember like which modifying key it is. I just look at the icon, okay? So you'll see that the icon should be like this black cursor on top of a white cursor, and that means that you're about to create a duplicate, okay? Side note, this is a transparent image, so I won't be able to make a duplicate from hovering over the middle of the image. So I literally need to be hovering over the actual outline of the image, or sorry, of the shape in order for this to happen. I'm going to keep Alt or Option held down. I'm going to go ahead and drag her over to where I want it to be. And then when I'm happy, please make sure you release your mouse click first, then you release Alt or Option. Okay? Reason is because if you release Alt or Option before, then it's like it never happened and it's going to be a big bummer. Okay? We don't want that. All right. So I have that all done and sorted. Cool. On to the next pieces here. So our next piece is this little teardrop moment, and there's a handful of ways that you can make this happen as well. I'm going to start with an oval shape and work from that. You could use your pen tool to create it. That's totally another option. I'm a bit more of a shape queen, if you will, and prefer to edit them. So that's what we're going to do next. The shape that I'm going to start with is the ellipse. So L for ellipse, letter L. L is in, I don't know, lion, right? Okay. Anyway, L for ellipse. Now in my control panel, my settings should still be the same, but it's always advantageous to double check. Now, not for nothing, if I change them right now, so if I added a fill color or something, it would actually change this shape because I have it selected. So just a heads up there. But I'm happy with all this, and that's fine. So I'm just going to go ahead and just drag a shape. It's not where I necessarily want it to be or anything like that, but yeah, that's fine. It's about the height, respectfully. Cool. All right. I'm happy with that. I'm going to move on back to at least my selection tool for now and just move this over. You'll see again, it's going to snap with my beautiful smart guides telling me when I'm aligned to something. Okay. Also for this shape, I am going to add a fill and I am going to turn off my stroke. Okay. Now from there, I'm going to zoom into this so you can see it a little bit more. What I'm going to do is I want to adjust the handles as well as the anchor points of this shape to get it to more of the teardrop moment that we're looking for. I don't want like any like super, maybe I do want pointed edges on the teardrop. No, I feel like that's just going to be like too rough. So I do want like some like rounded edges, but I'm going to show you how to like incorporate those later on. Okay. Anywho, the way that I prefer to do this is actually through the pen tool and shortcuts. Again, these tools do live just by themselves in your tools panel as well, but I prefer to have the pen tool because then I can switch with shortcuts very quickly between them. Okay. So the first thing that I want to do is that this point on top has two handles. So if I hold down Command or Control on my keyboard and I switch to this white cursor, it's called your direct select tool, and I click on that anchor point, you're going to see these little handle moments, which are handling your curves. I want to straight up remove them, at least for now. Okay. So the tool that I need to use to remove those handles is your anchor point tool. Okay. The anchor point tool is ultimately used to add or remove handles or manipulate handles individually. So if you want to add or remove handles, you go to the anchor point of which you want to, in this case, remove them. And I'm just going to click once. Goodbye. Lovely. We're getting there. We're close to an eye drop moment, but it's a very chunky eye drop moment. So we want to adjust it so that it's a little bit longer looking, if you will. So I'm going to switch back to that direct select tool. So I'm again going to hold down Control or Command. And not only am I going to select this anchor point on the right hand side, I'm also going to select the anchor point on the left as well. Okay. And then I'm going to be able to go ahead and, oops, hold on. I didn't hold down Shift. I lied to you. So, and hey, again, human error. We're humans. We make mistakes. Totes fine. Okay. Just as long as you're able to like circle back and be like, hey, like, what did I do wrong? Right. That's why I said, oops, I didn't hold down Shift. Okay. So here's the deal. You click on one, cool, with Control or Command. But in order to select multiple, you do need to hold down Control or Command, but also Shift. Okay. That's going to select both. And again, I have my anchor points set to like really small, so you can't quite see, but they are filled in with the dark red color as opposed to these two, which aren't filled in with the dark red. And you're like, I don't believe you. And you know what? I agree. It's really hard to see, but I promise you that's what it looks like. So we're going to go ahead. Oops. And now that we have them selected, we're going to drag those both down just a titch. Honestly, I'm pretty happy with that location of it. So cool. You can go in and you can manipulate other things as you want as well. It's totally up to you. But yeah, I'm fine with that. The last thing that I want to do is I want to go ahead and just add a little bit of a curve to the top of this raindrop moment. Okay. So there's this really nice feature with with anchor points that have no handles on them. When you select that anchor point, so I have this top anchor point selected, you're going to see this little circle in the inside of that anchor point. So what you can do is you can drag on that circle, and I don't need to drag like a ton because like I'm happy with like that much, just a little bit of roundness. And it's going to add actually 2 anchor points with handles. And it just gives you this nice little curve moment here. You can do that on all edges if you want to. Again, I'm just doing it on one, but yeah, I really love to do that. So cool. Anyway, I'm happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and just zoom out a titch. From there, when I create this initial shape, now that I'm looking at it, I feel like it's still a little too chunky. And honestly, I can just go in and with my regular selection tool, I can just drag that to the right just to make it a little bit more slender. And yeah, now it looks a lot more like a raindrop than a chunky raindrop. Cool. All right. The last 2 bits here, I'm going to choose to do, well, at least this big part here, I'm going to do definitely with the pen tool. You could do it with other shapes as well, for sure. But yeah, I'm going to do it with the pen tool. And actually, let me see if I really want to do that, because we could choose a slightly different way if we wanted to. I'm going to show you a slightly different way. I changed my mind. Instead, I'm actually going to start with a rectangle. This is also just like literally free form of how I work through the design process. When I'm thinking about creating things, I literally think to myself, okay, what's going to be the most efficient way for me to make this happen? Okay. So what's actually going to be more efficient, since I have these like solid corners, is actually starting with a rectangle first and then going from there. Okay. Before I go any further, I just want to make sure it's aligned. And also something to consider is this spacing on the edges, just to make sure that it's ultimately consistent throughout. Bonus points if this space here is consistent, which it isn't quite. So I'm going to just bring this down a little bit more, and I'm more happy with that shape. Okay. When it comes to iconography, simplicity and consistency will take you very, very far. But of course, like many other things, easier said than done. Okay. So cool. We have that. But now how are we going to go in and split that up? Okay. There's a lot of different ways that you can split this up, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little cut moment with, let me see where my scissors is, but it's not the scissors that I want. Okay. I'm going to do a cut moment with what's called my knife tool. Side note, sorry, excuse me. Let me take a little sip of my LaCroix. With the these tools, so the knife tool is underneath the scissor tool, and I knew it was there, but just a side note, there's something around the lines of like 80 tools or something in Illustrator. There's so many, right? So yeah, it can be challenging to find these tools sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. There is a little search feature that can help navigate to certain things, etc., but a lot of your tools are going to be hidden underneath. So a knife tool is one of them. Also, another hidden fun fact about these. So is once you use or choose one of these tools, what you can do is you can also decide how it works, okay? So once you choose a tool, you can double click on some of them. Okay, I guess we don't. I really thought we could adjust the smoothness with this one, but I lied. But if I wanted to adjust, let's see, if I go to the eraser tool, for example, I can adjust the size of this eraser shape if I double click on it. Okay, so a lot of your tools have that setting. The knife does not. I wanted to make sure that it would be a smooth cut, but it looks like we're just gonna have to do that a different way. So we're gonna do knife tool. Cool. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a little knife moment of the shape of the coffee that I want. Okay, so I'm just going to hover over the shape that I have selected and then do a little drag. Oh good, it actually smooths itself out. And that's okay. I honestly don't love it. So I'm going to take a step back. Okay. Controller Command Z. All right. I'm going to try again. I'm going to start here and then maybe wave myself up. Oh yeah. I'm vibing with that. That's much better. Much better. Perfect. Cool. All right. Love to see it. So now what you have are two separate shapes. Look at that. Okay. Beautiful. We love to see it. Okay. Next, what I'm going to do is, oh, hold on. Let me look at my original sketch. Oh, I had it up a little bit. You know what? I'm going to take a couple more steps back. I'm going to try it one more time with the knife tool because I want it to go down, or I'm going to start up a higher, then down immediately, then up. So that way it just looks a little bit more like my sketch. So I'm going to go down and then up, higher. Ew. Not quite. Let's try one more time. There we go. Yes. Yep. That's the one. That's the winner. And I'm not lying this time. That is the one that I'm happy with. Lovely. Okay, cool. And again, these are just two separate shapes now. So if I move this one up like so, you can see that it's two separate shapes. Okay. What I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to go ahead and adjust the size of this shape. So I want it to be just kind of this like flat moment here that just like lives inside here. All right. And what I'm going to do with that is actually just the shape builder tool. That makes the most sense to me. Again, everything that I'm doing here, if you haven't noticed the way that I think through this, there is multiple ways that you can do it. So not for nothing, but when you're creating a logo, as long as you're getting to the end result that you want, you're doing it to the right way. Okay, deal? Okay, deal. Are there some more efficient ways to do things? Sure. Yeah, of course. Sometimes, not all the time, you know, but listen, if you're getting to the end result that you want, you're doing a great job, in my opinion. Okay, so there you go. So anyway, I'm just going to create a rectangle over the part that I ultimately want to keep. Okay. And so what I'm going to do first is I do need to make a selection of both of these shapes with my selection tool. And then I'm going to go in and remove some bits with what's called the shape builder tool. Honestly, the shape builder tool is so hard to find in the tools panel because it's like kind of halfway down. So the shortcut for it is actually Shift M. Shift M. Shift M is the shortcut for it. I know it's really kind of challenging to find, but it's there nonetheless, okay? So now that I have that selected, cool, I'm going to actually remove from this. And so by default, your shape builder tool is set to add shapes. So I'm going to actually remove. shape. So I'm going to hold down Alt or Option, and that's going to switch my tool to actually remove. Okay, so I'm just going to remove this extra bit here and then remove this extra bit here. Cool. I'm going to release my mouse click and head on over to my selection tool again. Lovely. Okay. And from there, I'm going to go ahead, make it opaque so you can see the image behind. I mean, I could. Totally could. Didn't feel like I needed to. That's why, I guess. But yeah, you could if you wanted to. And then I'm just going to move that over to where I want it to be. Okay. I want, again, consistent spacing. So I'm kind of looking to align it to a place that's going to make the most sense in terms of what else I have going on with spacing. So I'm pretty content with that. Okay. The last step for this icon that I'm going to take is I'm going to go ahead and just round out some of the edges. I'm going to round out this edge here and then these two edges just a titch. So I'm going to select this shape, hold down Control or Command, zoom in. Okay. I'm going to switch to my direct select tool for this shape. I have both of the anchor points selected. So I'm going to go ahead and just round it out just a titch. Not a ton. Okay, just a little bit. And then I'm going to grab just this part of it here and then just round that out also the same amount. So 0.01, just a little bit. Do I want to do that to this side? Ooh, too far. Let's do hand tool instead. Nope, I don't. I'm happy with that. Okay, there we go. So icon complete. Okay, now well, actually not quite complete. I do want to adjust the thickness, and I am going to bring that down just a little bit more. I do want to adjust the thickness of my stroke. I think it's a little bit too small. So I'm going to select my stroke bits and increase the stroke. I think 3 is a good place to go for there. Cool. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn off my guides, and there we go. That is what we got for a beautiful little logo moment for our coffee shop. So again, there's a lot of different approaches to the iconography process and how you want to go through it. Like Jeanette mentioned in the chat, you could absolutely turn your objects to a more opaque color, especially if you're trying to refer to something. Not for nothing, but I personally, again, usually don't, because my sketches are so incredibly rudimentary. I'm not trying to align things perfectly. I'm just really just using it as sort of a general gist. So yeah, there's so many different ways, and every way is totally okay as long as you're getting to the answer that you want. Okay. All right. Next on our list. So funny that this session is supposed to end at 1. Pretty sure we are going to go, actually my text is in this layer, so let me move it. So we are going to go a little bit past that, just so y'all know. If anyone does need to leave early, let me know of anything that you would like me to answer for questions or anything. I'd be more than happy to help you with that. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and do the text, which the name that I decided to go with here is Dribble Cafe. And so I'm going to type in dribble, like dribble, like a dribble, but also, yeah. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit for y'all. Sorry. I work sometimes far away. Okay. And I'm going to scale this up. Honestly, for this design, what I wanted to do, but I don't want to like take up too much of your time. What I wanted to do for this design is I did want it to be at like an angle and like somewhere around this space here and play with that. But we're going to keep it simple here today. And we're just going to go ahead and add it to the top. I am going to change the type style here. What I like to do, I have black chosen right now. What I like to do is I like to find a thickness of the typeface that's similar to the thickness of the line, which, and I'm also kind of debating between, I kind of like the italic. So I think that this is a lot closer to the thickness. Oh, it's a little bit thin, but it is definitely a bit closer to the thickness of the line here. So I'm going to go with, rather than the black that I had earlier, I'm going to go with just a regular italic. And I'm also just going to switch this to 2.5. Is the sound down now? Sorry about that. Please confirm in the chat that you can hear me. Test, test. Because I'm seeing that it's on now. Test, test, test. Okay, yes. Whew, sorry about that, y'all. Getting back into it. I think I might have accidentally switched to a different scene that didn't have my mic set up. But, okay. So, where we last left off. All right. Where we last left off, I was copying the logo. And one of the feedbacks that I was trying to provide to you is in terms of text, not for nothing, but it would be amazing if you could just rework and play around with the type a lot more than I did. Didn't really spend a lot of time with it, to be honest. You missed a lot? Oh, sheesh. Okay. Well, if y'all let me know what you missed, I can kind of somewhat summarize. But ultimately, when it comes to the text, have it aligned in a way that works best for you. And then we can go ahead and rethink of things that could be interesting and unique with the text. And yeah, so that's that. Anyway, we're going to move these over. Oh, the other thing that I mentioned is having a horizontal and vertical version is advantageous for many logos. Sometimes they're more of like a badge logo moment, but having a badge and also vertical and also horizontal, all of those things are good things. So we're going to be pulling this now into the logo kit for y'all. So we're going to paste that in. It's a little bean. I'm going to, again, hold down shift when I'm scaling. Okay. And I'm going to center it like so. Okay. Now that I have it in my logo kit, I can go in and adjust the colorway that I have of it. Something that could be faster for me here is ultimately selecting things that are either have a fill or have a stroke. Okay. And the best way to do that in an instance where it's grouped like this is going to be to select the direct select tool. So I have the direct select tool selected. I want to select everything that has a fill. So I'm going to hold down shift and I'm going to select the little drop moment and these two moments here as well. Okay. These all have a fill. From here, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to use the dark blue for this main presentation. Okay. Now that I have that switched over to the dark blue, this next round, I'm going to go ahead and select the outline. So I'm going to select the first one, hold down shift to select the remaining ones. Oops, not holding down the right key. There we go. Hold down shift. Cool. And I'm going to go to my swatches this time and move down to my navy blue right there. Just kidding. You want to know why it filled it? Because my fill is on top. So you want to make sure that your stroke shape is on top before you choose your color. So now I got that. And now it's going to switch that to that navy blue. Okay. From there, other things that I will do is I might do like different variations of this icon, for example. So I'm going to copy this and paste that over. Scale it. Okay, that was a little too small. Whoops. But scale it to an appropriate size to fit in these circles. This is what it would be kind of like for a social media icon. Okay. So if you had a social media icon, this one I'm actually going to do a white version for. So let me switch back to my direct select and choose white, not for the stroke. Choose white for the fill and select the stroke. This time I will remember, switch the stroke and switch over to white. So that way you have a dark icon and a light icon. Honestly, I kind of like it in white even more than I do in the navy blue, which does a lot of times happen when you're creating these logos. Um, there's a few other things that you can, of course, add here. So dribble and just adding the type ways. And I can even like have it over a little bit if I want to. I'm going to change it to white and just have it on top for now. Okay. And I can play around with that. For example, I could do, oops, sorry. I could do a duplicate of that. Dribble, dribble, or jibble, jibble, if you know, you know. And then you also want to do an example of the other typeface that was used. So I'm going to create a duplicate of that as well in this space. And here I could just have it a bit smaller and in the center. Some other things, and I'm going to be closing some things off so you have a little bit of time to like ask questions and stuff for me, double checking my audio to make sure it's still on. But a couple of other places in this template as well is that you have each of them separated into what it could be, and you can use them for a wide variety of things, okay? I use the two support photos on the right and left-hand side. I have a section for a pattern as well. We just unfortunately didn't get to the pattern process. But if you want to learn about how to make a pattern, there is a live from me that we did last year, actually in Illustrator, or also in Illustrator, but about fashion. But we do walk through the process of working with the pattern process in that video. So definitely check that out, and that walks you through it. And then also, this is another support illustration that you could incorporate. So maybe there's a different version or variation of your logo that you could incorporate on that side. Maybe there's some other type of supporting illustration. A lot of folks are going with this almost like a mascot in some cases. So if you had like a mascot of some sort that you wanted to incorporate, that could be in that supporting illustration. So the supporting illustration is ultimately kind of similar to both patterns and your supporting images. It's additional things that you can use along with your logos. So again, the link to this logo kit template is in our description, and you'll be able to download it there. And yeah, so I wanted to give you all a moment. If you have any questions, there's a fair amount of you here right now. When it comes to creating logos in Illustrator, the moral of the story is, again, take your time, ideate, research. Actually, I do have some closing thoughts. So let's do that. Don't try to make something out of nothing, okay? Find inspiration, okay? Imagine trying to go through this process without any idea of what you want for a solution, okay? Do research and create something that's ultimately both uniquely yours as well as your clients, okay? Showcase your style, showcase your capabilities, and take your time with this. This tutorial class is a little past an hour, and the design process was around a half hour, respectfully. It will likely take you a lot more time to work on a logo and work through processes. The reason why I wanted to do this for you organically, so you could see that thought process that happens in that creation time, okay? Again, a big thing that I didn't focus on a lot during this presentation was that I didn't work through a lot of type options. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to work with rotating my type, working with outlines of my type, or ways to incorporate it with the illustration that were more connected than the result that I ended up showing you at the end, right? Take your time with this process and allot yourself a reasonable amount of time based off of what your capabilities and comfortabilities are, right? So work with yourself, be real with yourself, okay? Keep it simple in terms of logos. Again, simple and consistent can go a really, really long way. Start simple, start consistent, and you can add more interesting things if necessary, but some things that I do suggest avoiding. You don't have to. Loads of people do use them, but at least in the starting phases, I would suggest avoiding gradients, avoiding too many strokes or too many colors. I, as you saw, prefer to design with black, or rather in black, and then I choose to incorporate color later on. And again, work within your own skill set. If you see something or you see an idea that's really cool, that's awesome. But before maybe working on something, try to figure out how to do that. Maybe try to reverse engineer something that you see on Behance, whatever that may be. So those are my closing thoughts for you all. I really appreciate you all being here. I'm just going to ask one more time. Is there any questions in the chat? I know there's a little bit of a lag in terms of the chat. So I'm just going to give you some moments. If you are watching this video afterwards, this is the closing moment. I'm not sure if there's going to be any questions or not at the end. But again, I just want to thank every one of you for being here. I greatly appreciate it. I hope you all learned something. Definitely check out our graphic design certificate program through Noble Desktop, where you're going to be able to learn so much more, not only about logo design, but also how to create things in Illustrator, InDesign, and Photoshop. So definitely check that out. And I hope you all had a great time today during this session. Have a great rest of your Thursday and take care, everyone.